All right, welcome, Nachman.
Thank you.
I'm sitting here with Nachman Forer,
Yes.
who's in town for the Anochi Breathwork Workshop with Dan Brule. So your partner Adam was here. Dan Brule was here. Sat on this holy chair
Yes.
that you're sitting on. So I'm grateful to have you here. You want to talk about what's going on this week? Like, what was behind this Breathwork Workshops Anochi with Dan Brule? What's going on?
Adam and I have been doing workshops for 10 years, roughly. I've been on many workshops, not just Anochi workshops, but on other workshops to keep my training going. And one of the central components of our workshops is breathing. We do breathing on the workshop, but even throughout the workshop, we're always asking people, well, breathe into that. Take responsibility for the words that you're saying. Don't just say words. Take a breath before you talk. And I think it was 2018 or 19, we reached out to Dan Brule because we did some research and we thought that he was one of the best breathwork teachers in the world.
Yeah, it seems like he is one of the best in the world.
Yeah. And like as a flyer, we said, let's just reach out for him. Like, why not? And he picks up the phone and we had a conversation with him and he said, could we start working together, train us? So he started training us like a week at a time, and then COVID hit.
Right, us would be you and Adam.
Me, Adam, and then we brought some of our guys that were on our workshops
So
with
all
us.
facilitators. You're focused on.
Facilitators, coaches, but we opened it up to anybody. You know,
Many given participants.
we would have in the beginning 10 to 15 people.
Got it. Cool.
Also, some of Dan's people. You know, some people from Toronto or from Montreal or from
Right.
anywhere in the world. People that were following Dan would come and join us, and
You and Adam both live in Toronto.
we both live in Toronto.
So most of your workshops are there?
No.
They're where?
So most of our workshops currently are in upstate New York,
Got it.
just because we mostly service the Orthodox Jewish community, although we're open to any Jew. But we've done workshops in Montreal and Toronto. We're going to hopefully do a workshop in a month or so from now in Miami
Beautiful.
at your house, the House of More.
The House of More.
Yeah, a little plug for you. So anyways, we spoke to Dan about a year and a half ago, and we said to him, let's make this a business. Let's start collaborating, because there's a lot of people that are very interested in breathwork right now. You're the master. You're the guy that knows every modality or many modalities out there. You're not singularly focused on one specific type of breathwork.
Right. I think for someone who's not familiar with breathwork, like what it is, because it sounds like a word we all know, but then it means something else in different contexts. So I think with Dan, just for those listening, in general, we think of when we hear like, oh, this guy's a breathworker or does transformational breathwork, they've either learned or developed usually a singular breath, right, a breathing pattern that they use for typically transformational experiences.
Right.
Dan has a breath for everything.
Yes.
For everything. So like he's a student of the breath.
Yes.
Like the breath of the breath.
The breath.
Just
And
how-
that's why I like him so much, where I'm also a guy that's likes the bigger picture, likes to know more of what's out there. Also, I want to learn from the expert.
Right.
And he's helped me a lot with my anxiety. So there were times in my life that I've had 6-hour panic attacks, or going to sleep at night was like the scariest thing in the world. And I would be afraid to tell my wife, because maybe I'm just anxious and I don't want to scare her. And just using the breath has helped me tremendously. And I've had friends tell me, why don't you just take a pill? Just take an anxiety pill, do it for your family. You're a husband, you're a father. You can't afford coming home at night and being anxious. And I was determined not to take a pill. I just didn't, I don't know, I grew up that way. When we grew up, my mother was never into the regular medicine. She was always into alternative stuff. I remember as a kid, we never went to doctors. We went to chiropractor. If I had a cold, I went to a chiropractor. If I had a fever, I went to a chiropractor.
Right.
And we never went to doctors. So just in my brain, it was, why put drugs in my body if I could do this with a breath?
But this was after you were at it for many years. Meaning you were at the healing game for
Yeah.
many years, and there was still anxiety.
There was still anxiety because it was never targeted. Only over the last 4 or 5 years did the anxiety really start coming up.
Right.
Almost, I feel godly in the sense that like God just gave me the next step in my journey. Like now is the time you've did some work on yourself, but now you have to work on anxiety.
Right.
And that was a trip.
Yeah. It's interesting. My case was similar. I was at this work for a long, long time. And in my case, it took me through not only breath work, but also through psychedelics and, ayahuasca and psilocybin, et cetera. What pushed me there was that I was at this for years. I mean, therapy, every modality I can look at, 12 steps for years. I'd gotten sober. Life was better in many ways, but there was this underlying anxiety that would sometimes pop up as panic attacks.
Right.
And I said, I gotta get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
And psychedelics presented that. So for you, that was breath.
I breathe every day. I'm religious about it. And if I miss a day, I feel it. I have a breathwork partner. So I'll meet him once every 2-3 weeks and we'll breathe each other for 3 hours. So I have someone on top of me.
What do you mean for 3 hours? What are you doing for 3 hours?
That we check in with each other. We set intentions. We talk about different things that are going on in our lives, something vulnerable. And then we'll breathe. And he'll breathe me and I'll breathe him. And he's also part of the Dan Brule program. So he already knows my nuances. I've been breathing with him for years. And I know his. So we really have gotten into this great partnership to breathe together.
So what are you able to offer him? Someone who's done breath work for a long time, it's an interesting term, breathe him. But when I guess so you're watching him while he's breathing. So you're not breathing, he is.
Yeah.
You're observing and then you're giving guidance along the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
someone who's at this for a long time, breath work, like this guy sounds like he is, what are you observing and what are you changing? What are you helping him with?
So when it comes to breath work, the way I see it is, for me and for many people in the world, they've lost their sense of self from whatever experiences they've gone through in life. I went through experiences in life. I used to get slapped up every day as a kid. I used to go to a school that I felt not part of. I felt like I was on the outside of the class always. I never felt included. And I became a troublemaker, and the rabbis would hit me a lot. And when that happened, worse than the hit was the shock that you're supposed to protect me. You're my guardian. Why would you do that to me? I'm just this innocent, yummy little boy wanting to express myself. So when I realized, unconsciously, I realized that this person is doing something to hurt me, I tensed up. I closed myself up. And when I closed myself up, I changed my breathing pattern. And I started creating tensions in my body. So now, fast forward 20, 30, 40 years later, when I do breath work, it's releasing those tensions. It's bringing myself back to a healthy breath, to a proper breath. When I first met Dan Brule, I was doing something called reverse breathing, where when I inhaled, my stomach would go in, and when I exhaled, my stomach would go out, which really should be the opposite. An inhale, right? You're filling up your body with air.
Right.
The body should expand. But by me, I was doing the opposite because I had so much anxiety in me. So it would...
Yeah, I can see how that's easy to do.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I'm watching someone, the more I do it, there's little nuances. I could see a little tension right there, or I could see a tension in his jaw. And usually that's related to some, insecurity or limiting belief about the person. So I'll just remind him gently, keep breathing, or sometimes he'll stop breathing. Just keep breathing. There's something in your jaw, or even touch his jaw just to remind him just to let go, relax.
Interesting.
And same for me. And I think, I'm a leader of a workshop, and it's easy for a leader to say, you know what, I'm above others. And I think what we do in Anochi workshops is, as much as I'm the leader, but really I'm in a circle, I'm part of the participants. I always want to check in. I always want to breathe with other people. I'm not this like guru, head of everybody. And you're doing this work, you're breathing, you're coming to a workshop because there's truth to it. There's truth to the work. There's truth to the breath. I'm human. One day I could give this all up. That's who I am. That's the way humans are. There could be temptations, God forbid, but I want people to believe in the work. I want people to believe in the breath.
Understood. So the work with Dan helped you to change your breathing in your day-to-day life? That's what you're saying?
100%. I did one private breath work with him, changed my breathing completely. Absolutely changed it. And it was interesting because I saw the breathing pattern that he pointed out. And for 2 months afterwards, I was very conscious of my breathing patterns. And it was painful to breathe normally. It was very painful to breathe in a healthy way.
Right.
But once I started getting into it, I can't go back to the old breath anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, one of the things he said on the podcast with me was that, every emotion has a corresponding breath, right? So usually the emotion will come first and the breath will follow.
Yes.
He says you can reverse it. You can start with the breath.
Yeah.
Because a positive emotion has a breath as well.
Yeah.
Right? So start with that breath and then it changes the feeling. I don't know if I told this to Dan, but I got into breathing about 7 years ago with a coach who learned from Dan.
Right.
So he gave me Dan's book. He was always talking about Dan.
Right.
And then from there, my journey kind of switched because when I first learned breathing, he was using it more in like kind of 5-10 minute intervals or give me something daily or before a meeting, like, hey, use this, use that.
Right.
Some he'd have recorded, like guided breaths I can do. Others he would teach me. But it was more used in the sense of if we had a session, then let's breathe for the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then maybe we'll talk for
brilliant.
the balance 45. And then it wasn't...
That probably opened you up.
Well, I was dealing with a ton of anxiety at the time.
Okay.
Like a ton. It was a lot of business challenges I was going through. And kind of, a lot of things converged at the same time. So I was going through heavy stuff in addiction recovery, really wanting to be sober, but all the anxiety coming up. At the same point in time, a lot of business challenges. And at the same point in time, I was engaged and getting married and went through all that. So there's a lot kind of coming together. And someone recommended this coach to me, and we would meet twice a week, but he gave me homework for the entire week. And unlike any other business coach I had spoken to who wanted to talk to me about, org charts and, I don't know, all sorts of other plans and everything else, he was focused on breathing. Like, let's breathe, and then, we'll talk about those things too. It's not that it's not important, but let's make sure you're coming from a good headspace. So it was cool to come full circle because after I worked with him for a while, then, at some point in time, that relationship, whatever it was, maybe about 2 years we worked together, I still had anxiety, but I had better tools to manage it. The breathwork definitely helped.
Yeah.
And then I was introduced to psychedelics, and that kind of changed my life. A short time afterwards, a friend invited me to a breathwork with a guy named Christian de la Huerta. Christian is, he's done some events at the House of More as well. He was on the podcast. He's been in the space for about 30 years, so about half as long as Dan, but more focused specifically on transformational breathwork. It's not the same thing as Dan. And that was the first time I experienced the transformational breathwork, which I was like, hey, cool, you can have a psychedelic experience.
That's so cool.
I'm like, this is so accessible, and you don't have a hangover, you don't have anything. You're great.
Right.
An hour later, you're in the car driving home, and the next day you're at work like a normal person.
Yeah.
So that was...
and that's what I found. I found the more I practiced breath, I could get that psychedelic experience on a daily basis.
Right.
And I'm not looking for that high, but I think what breathwork does, if you do it properly and you keep bypassing the distractions, you get to a place of where you find yourself. You find that true, authentic space, and it's something special.
Yeah, it's a very, very special modality, and I'm grateful that it's suddenly becoming known. And I guess what I'm guessing what this workshop is about, but it feels like to me the Anochi Breathwork Workshop with Dan, this 5-day retreat you're doing here in Florida, it's focused on bringing this out to the community, not only in the sense of individuals learning from themselves, but could they become teachers to others as well? Is that?
Yeah. So the great thing about Dan Brule, as opposed to other breathwork teachers or other teachers in general, there's a curriculum. So you need to finish Unit 1 to know Unit 2. With Dan, the curriculum is about getting into your body. It's not knowledge. Yes, knowledge is helpful. When someone's stuck, you want to know how to unstick them. But 90% of what he teaches is about being in your body. And therefore each day is independent of the next day because it's just about flowing. And that's why an expert that's breathed for 20 years could be with a beginner that's never breathed, and they'll all get something out of a Dan Brule event.
Right. Right.
And I also find it's good to have some context. Again, you don't have to, but first of all, I think a lot more people are informed. I'm meeting a lot more people that are doing something, whether it's psychedelics, whether it's therapy, whether it's group work, whether it's AA or whatever it is. And that's cool, that the vibration of the world is sort of picking up.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, you've been at this for a long time, and there was a time where this was relegated to the basement.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of on the first floor or the second floor, so maybe even above that.
So I really attribute this, like as a religious Jew, and I really believe this, that the world is in a messianic age. And that's why there's so much darkness. The light is balancing out the darkness. So with the darkness and the crazy that's going on in the world today, there's also an influx of light. And I think more and more people are getting inspired on a more practical level. People have anxiety. People have built their life up till COVID. Their life made sense. As long as they went to university, as long as they have a good retirement fund, they're going to be okay. And just 2 weeks ago, I was at this little conference in my shul. We had some mental health professionals, and some older woman got up, and she's just living with a lot of anxiety. And her life has been set up perfectly. But with COVID hitting, and then what's going on in Israel today, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And when there's uncertainty, people are looking for answers.
Right.
And the mainstream stuff that people have been given until now, they're not appealing to those people. But when someone says to me, I have anxiety, and they could sit with me for an hour, and all of a sudden their anxiety goes way down because they breathed, or I know how to hold space for them, it's a real epiphany. That moment's like, okay, this is something I want to get more into. I want to learn more about this.
That makes sense. You attribute a lot of it to COVID. What happened there?
Yeah, I think that turned the world upside down a little bit.
Yeah. It shook up a lot of our maybe preconceived ideas of what kept us safe or secure.
Yeah. Things that would keep you safe until now are not. Hey.
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've been at it for a while, like you have been, in terms of healing. Not in the professional capacity, but just in the work on myself capacity. And then psychedelics, I started a little bit before COVID. 2019, I think, was my first experience. And that shifted a lot.
Yeah.
That shifted a lot.
Yeah. I also, another thing I think is important, I believe, generally speaking, so I don't want to say 100% of the time, but almost 100% of the time, let's say 95% of the time, a feeling that you have today is not a new feeling that was just generated.
What kind of feeling are we talking
Anxiety,
about?
anger,
For sure,
sadness. Yeah. When anxiety gets activated in my system, what happened was I got triggered because of my business. I got triggered because I have to go on a flight. I got triggered because I'm doing a podcast, whatever it is. But the trigger is just reminding me that there's something inside of me that still hasn't been taken care of. There's anxiety still stuck in my body, in my physical body, that hasn't been dealt with. So when I get faced to do a public speaking, I get faced to, I have to face my finances, and I'm a little scared about it. All that is it's just reminding me that there's a place inside me that is anxious, that there's anxiety there, and that's usually attached to some negative beliefs about myself. In my case, it was, I don't believe in myself. I don't deserve. So when anxiety comes up, having that background of a workshop where I've checked in around myself a lot and I know a lot of my insecurities. Now when I have anxiety, it's not just the breathing. It's also, there's a meditation component to it. So I'm breathing, I'm feeling the anxiety. And I'm also telling myself, Nachman, you're okay. Just because you have anxiety, that doesn't mean you're going to die. And there were times I was on a baseball field. I literally thought, I am going to die. But I don't want to tell the guys that I'm going to die because I'm playing baseball. This is something that I love. I love baseball. So I would literally suck it up and not know what to do with myself until I got off the field, race home, and go to bed, hoping that the anxiety would go away.
Right.
But now that I have the wherewithal, the space that I've done work in has brought me a lot of information that I could use when I'm having an anxiety feeling. So it's not just breathing, but it's also the right frame of mind.
Right. So I guess you're saying there's awareness that there's something larger at play.
Yeah.
Meaning it's not just this trigger, whatever it is, this thought that got me into a state of anxiety, now I have to figure out how to get out. This is representative or bringing me back to a larger issue that then I can work out or resolve.
And for me, what's the real kicker? Because I always thought I was alone in life. I can't speak to anybody. All my issues are my issues. There's no one that wants to even listen to me.
Right.
So what really got me, or what really would help me when I'm in an anxiety state, was, Nachman, all this anxiety that you're feeling right now is an old feeling that you felt when you were 5 years old, when you're 10 years old, and your body just wants attention. The anxiety is like a little boy just wanting someone to hold him. And I would literally hold that anxiety in an energetic way and tell myself that you're okay, you're not alone, you're good, everything's gonna be okay, you matter, you deserve, and just keep on sending these like positive messages as I'm breathing.
Right.
And let go of the anxiety. And almost I would embrace the anxiety. You know what? Thank you for showing up, because you're something that I need to deal with. So I'm here for you, little boy.
Right.
Almost like I have two people there.
Right.
My adult self and my child self.
Yeah, you reminded me of like bringing me back to when I was dealing with it very heavy. The anxiety was, my biggest fear was of the fear itself. Was, would the anxiety come back?
Yeah.
You know, because that I didn't want to do.
Yes.
Remember there was I was in an ayahuasca journey, and I went into a terrible, terrible panic during it. I mean, it was terrible. That was actually the worst panic attack of my life. Yeah. And for those unfamiliar with it, it doesn't always drag you out of the room. Sometimes it makes you very, very present to everything. There's literally nowhere to go, you know? So it's not like off in a different world. It's like, no, you know everything that's going on, you know everyone in the room. And I was sitting there in a state of, complete anxiety, panic, and I realized that there was nowhere to run. Some other medicines, like ayahuasca, you can open your eyes, you can distract yourself. Ayahuasca gets worse. Like you open your eyes and then the room starts turning colors. So it's like, I just lie down, close my eyes, and offer it to pass. Eventually, the facilitator kind of helped me through it. And through some talking and through some rape, and it's like, am I willing to let it go? And whatever, a whole process. And I understood what it was. As soon as it left me, I understood that it was a fear of feeling joy. And actually what had happened in the journey was I had reached a state of like joy and bliss in it. And then this voice came into my head and said like, oh, you sure?
You don't deserve joy.
It was scary. It's a very vulnerable feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Because in that state of joy, it's a suggestion that everything is okay. But how do you know?
Right.
Well, how do you know it's on the other side of the door, right? And all of a sudden these thoughts start playing with me.
Right.
And it spun in a way that it had never spun before because there was nowhere to turn.
Right.
And I was left with this. And then finally, first I had to understand it, it's really a fear of feeling joy. And then am I willing to let that go? And then over the course of maybe 20 or 30 minutes, letting it go. And I felt this complete amazing state of bliss. And right at the moment that I got to that place, the band, which was some Spanish band in the corner, started playing Havenu Shalom Aleichem. It was a very trippy experience. I can say, like, Havenu Shalom Aleichem.
Wow.
Like, what the hell just happened? I didn't know these guys know the song. They were singing ayahuasca music all night. And then I turned to the guy who helped me with it, and I said, I said, I feel amazing. I feel so light. I've never felt like this in my life. I was like, I yelled out. I was like, I reclaim joy. I reclaim joy. And he's like, there's many people in their ceremony. Like, keep it to yourself.
Right.
Fine. And then I said to him, it's going to come back. And he said, it might, but now you know how to get rid of it.
Right.
Right. I remember
Right.
that. So something you said made me think of that.
Yeah. I think that's the most important key. I think a lot of people that I work with, whether they're addicts or whether they're regular people with anxiety or anger, I can't get too angry. I can't go to that anxiety place. I can't do that work because they're so afraid that if they get rid of it, then it's going to come back and they're not going to know what to do with it. But if you teach them the tools and you say, it doesn't matter if you have anxiety again, because
Right. Now you know how to, now you know what to do with it. Right. Exactly.
and I think that's very empowering, very empowering.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Tell me what you think of this theory. So looking back at my life, I'm wondering, like, why did I hold on to these so tight? These anxieties, anything else? So to me, there's got to be a counterbalance to it. Meaning, if I'm holding on to this anxiety so tight, in the 12 steps, there's a step that says, step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, which is a very bizarre step when you first read it. What do you mean we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character? Of course I'm ready. Take all my problems.
Right.
Why do I need to go through a step?
Right.
And I don't know who it is, if it's one of the founders of AA, like Bill W., or someone else who was senior and well-respected, who said step 6 separates the boys from the men. That, like, recovery is hinged on step 6.
Wow.
You get through step 6, you open. And one of the questions when one of my sponsors took me through the 12 steps is, as you get, in the first 5 steps, at the end of it, you get through a list of character defects. Say characteristics like anger and insecurity, or low self-esteem, or argumentative or avoidant, whatever. You can end up with a list of character defects that are based on the problems that are most prevalent in your life, right? You're starting with your fears that are coming up. You're starting with your resentments of people. And based on that, you're ending up with this neat little list of your character defects.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, are you entirely ready to give it up? It's like, are you ready to give it up? So first thought, you'd say, yes, I am. But then my sponsor asked me about each one. He said, okay, I want you to answer 5 questions about them. And one of them was, and every sponsor has a different approach, right? And he said, what is the benefit you are getting from it? Right? What is the benefit you're getting from anger? What is the benefit you're getting from being avoidant? What is the benefit you're getting from being lazy? What is the benefit you're being, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You go through your lists of stuff. So that framework, right, said, okay, so if I have these fears and everything else, and there's some sort of benefit, and the benefit has to be so big, otherwise I wouldn't hold on to it so tight. Why would I, let my life fall apart to such a degree? And one of the things I've thought of, especially as it relates to anxiety and fears and like a lot of these things, is that the second we get past it, like even if it's temporarily, if we're like, hey, we're not there for a little bit, the responsibility of our life come forward. Like suddenly there's a purpose that's thrust on us.
Yes.
And there's something we have to do.
Yes.
So to avoid that,
Right.
Does that land with you? Does that resonate?
Yeah, and if I could add to that, so first of all, Gabor Mate is a big believer in that idea where anything that you're doing, there has to be something good out of it. Even
100%,
taking the worst drug in the world, heroin or crack cocaine, which the person knows is going to kill them, but they do it anyways. And the reason is because it secretes a little chemical in their brain that it's a dopamine or hit that they get, and it's that same dopamine hit they should have got when they were younger and their mother was around giving them hugs, but they never got the hug, and they're just desperate for that. Like every human being wants the natural dopamine in the brain to flow, but they don't have a place to get it. So there's something good about it. And the good thing about knowing that is now that you know that this is what you want, in most cases or in a lot of cases, hopefully you could replace it with a healthy alternative.
Right. So instead of saying what's wrong with something, what's right about it?
Yeah, what's so good about anxiety? Well, what's so good about anxiety for
that's my
me?
question. Yes.
That's when I felt alive. As much as I don't want to admit that.
Right, you do feel alive.
You feel alive because everything is very, like when in extreme state of anxiety, you're very vigilant and you're very, you could feel every little thing, even like you don't want to eat certain foods, and you feel alive. And that's what's so good about it. And if I gave up anxiety, it means, like you said, I have to take responsibility. I can't just distract myself with the drug of choice or alcohol or online or whatever it is that you distract yourself with. And people like that distraction
Yes.
because it's a short-term dopamine hit.
Yeah, that description of like anxiety as feeling alive feels very
Yeah.
feels very real. There's something, think about it, if you want to do something to feel alive, right? We often do things that challenge us in a healthy way,
Yeah.
right? Let's do something that makes us a little afraid.
Right.
Let's go on a podcast. Let's do
Yeah.
a TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
Let's do things that give us that fear, makes us feel like, oh, I
Yeah.
did something. I was alive today.
So whenever I did some public speaking, I would always get anxiety. Even before this podcast, I had some anxiety, and I lean into it. And okay, this podcast may be a horrible podcast. Okay, so what? Like
Impossible.
what's right? No, but even the brain
Yes.
starts thinking the worst case scenarios. And what if then? What if? And then what's going to happen? And you
Right.
get to a place where nothing's going to happen. Worst case scenario that people think I'm a bad speaker. Okay,
And people will be able to commiserate with you on that.
fine, but
Right.
if,
Right, no, you're right.
if I'm being true to myself,
Right, the fear is not existential.
it's right. And if I'm being really true to myself, there's something that Nachman has that no one in the world has. I have a gift to give to the world. And there are people in this world that will resonate to me, and there are people that don't resonate to me. I think that's healthy.
For sure, yeah.
I don't think everybody should resonate to me because there's something that I give that maybe Adam or you could give them differently, and
Right.
they need that.
Yeah, 100%. So let's take me back a little bit. How did you get into this work? How does a nice little Jewish kid from Toronto become someone who's leading retreats on,
Right.
especially 10 years ago?
Yes. So interesting. When I was a kid, I always had this dream of wanting to perform, of wanting to help people, like just be there and change the world. Like it would come in different dreams, and I would daydream about changing the world. And growing up,
What did that mean to you then? What was it? What was it
know what
about
it
the
meant
world
to
that you were
me.
trying to change?
I don't know what it meant to me. Meaning, as a kid, I just wanted to change something, and I mean, I guess it's a good question. Life was hard growing up. I would get up early in the morning, walk to the bus stop, get on this public transportation, which caused me anxiety, get to school where I felt different than everybody else, more anxiety, get on a bus. Sometimes my ride home would take 2.5 hours. And in a cold winter night, standing at a bus stop for an hour and a half, and a lot of physical abuse, a lot of hitting. I don't like labeling myself as someone that was abused. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me,
Right.
but there was. I would get slapped on a regular basis. There were times that my mother had to go and change my glasses 3 times a month because we got into fights all the time. So growing up with that, it really humbled me. And it also gave me a lot of limiting beliefs. I don't deserve. I'm not good enough. I'm always to blame. These are stories that I have unconsciously. So now imagine being married to a man that doesn't think he deserves, that doesn't believe that he's good enough. So any interaction that I would have with my wife or kids was filtered through those insecurities.
Understood.
So when my wife and I would talk, we'd get into a fight and I wouldn't speak to her for 2 weeks. And my biggest frustration was I wish someone taught me tools. I know there are tools out there. I just don't know what they are. And please help me. I'm doing something wrong. I don't like fighting with my wife.
So until you got married, this was off your radar completely?
Off my radar completely.
What were you doing at the beginning of your marriage for work?
So I was a salesperson for a while, and then I got into different sales, dental supplies, medical supplies, and even in business, I wasn't thriving in business. I was just making ends meet. And one day, I think I was 36 years old or 37, my brother came to me. I've never done therapy or anything like that in my life.
How old are you today? Just for
I'm 48.
got it. Okay.
He comes to me at 37 years old, I think I was, and he says, "Hey, there's this workshop, you get real, and it's about finding your authentic self." All these words, And I don't know, something about it. In 30 seconds, I was convinced. I said, where do I sign up? I signed up. I went to a workshop. I think I cried for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
Because I literally,
Are you comfortable saying the name of the workshop?
yeah, call of the shofar.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And I was blown away by the work. Shortly afterwards, I called my Rav, my rabbi, and I said, hey, there's this amazing workshop that I went to, and I would love to be more a part of it. He said, well, why don't you start your own workshop? And at the same time, my brother-in-law was doing this work. I said, hey, why don't we start our own workshop? And
Your brother-in-law is?
Adam Klasner.
Oh, I didn't know he's your brother-in-law. Okay, cool.
And we started doing workshops. We were with Mo Sorer for many years.
Yes.
And we just did workshops. And for like 5 years, I was a participant at the workshop. I didn't do anything. I didn't facilitate. I didn't coach. All I was doing was just breathing, holding space. And I wasn't a participant. I was only a participant once. But even though I was a staff, I was a staff with my mouth shut, just breathing and resonating and breathing and resonating and doing work on myself. And every week I would check in with people every week. Multiple
How did you learn
times.
what the modalities you wanted to use in the workshop and things like that?
So the first workshop, they introduced us to these tools called 4 quarters. Now that we've rebranded over the last year and a half, we've changed that to outside the box. That really spoke to me because that's very much about taking responsibility. It's very much about breathing. Those tools, you got to breathe, you got to feel and take responsibility.
Got it. So it was stuff that was working for you and helping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just started going. We're still in training. Like I've never stopped training. I know in a lot of industries, I know in the financial industries, they got to take continuing education credits.
Yeah.
So I think also in this work, I think it's important that I keep training, doing more. So we did NLP, we did Tony Robbins, we did Imago, we did, Gabor Mate's, the full program with him. I think I was one of the first cohorts.
The compassion inquiry.
The compassion inquiry. I would meet with him, not as by myself, but with a group, and he would facilitate us. And we did many, we're still doing work and with different modalities.
Right. Dan Brule. I mean,
Dan Brule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really neat. Yeah. I'm thinking about the Dhamma retreats that I did a couple with Mayor Kay. I mean, just the 2 I did, I feel like they helped me tremendously.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I tell my wife, I said, I think sometimes I get more out of the workshop than the participants. But I think that's a good thought. That's a good thought. It's a humble thought. It's I'm not just coming to be this leader. I'm coming because I also want to grow. And I think that first circle that we do on our workshops, everybody, staff included, checks in, your name, what are you feeling, and what do you want to have happen at this workshop? And it's a vulnerable moment, even for me. And I say, I want to embrace my father more. I want to work on my anxiety. And people are looking at that and say, hey, he's a guy in the workshop, but he's also a participant. He's not just a leader.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We try to do something similar.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the work, the work doesn't end.
Doesn't end.
It's once.
But
my father told me when I was real young. He said that, there's something. There's a lot to learn from becoming an expert at anything.
Yeah.
Like develop an expertise somewhere. And I'm not sure I've exactly heeded his advice because I've jumped in a lot of different things. Business, healing stuff, the business side of the healing stuff,
right.
Leading stuff, helping others do it, the podcast, kind of, so I don't know that I've heeded exactly, but certainly in terms of the personal development, like that's been a consistent focus of mine for many years. And you learn very quickly it's God developed an infinite game over here.
Yeah, I think
there's there.
That's a very important point. A lot of people are looking for the end goal. Okay, so how long is this going to take me? Do I need to do 3 workshops? If it's 3 workshops, I'll do it. And as long as you tell me at the end, I'll be perfect. And I think people have to realize there is no perfect. We're a human being. We go to the bathroom. We get old. We're never going to be perfect. And that's part of the human experience. And if you could, tap that into your brain and say, I'm always going to be on a journey, it gets to a point where it's actually enjoyable.
100%.
Like, I love this work, but first 2-3 years in this work, I would constantly doubt myself and say, you know what, why did you get into this work? You're wasting your time. You're still the same old loser. You're getting into fights still, but I just kept I don't know, there was that inner drive in me just to keep going. And every once in a while, God would like send me this message where a woman would call me up and say, you saved my marriage. Or someone would call me up and said, I was going to commit suicide, but for you, I didn't.
Huh.
Like, whoa, that's like a message from Hashem telling me, keep doing this work.
Yeah.
And keep working on yourself. Coach called me up today and he said, Nick, what's next? I said, just work on yourself. Because the more you work on yourself, the more you breathe, the more you do, the more you could teach others. Like, how could you teach people about anxiety if you've never gone through it?
So what do you think the focus really is? Meaning, is it the others to help ourselves, or it's working on ourselves to help others?
I actually think it's working on ourselves.
And
when you're around somebody that, like we talked before this, we started the podcast, but when you're around someone that's perfected his craft, whether that's a sports player or a Dan Brule, you automatically, your vibration raises up.
Right.
And I think if I'm leading a workshop, but then I'm doing stupid things on the side, how serious could people take me? But if I'm working on myself and really changing my life, the best workshop referral that I get is a guy calls me up and he says, hey, my neighbor so-and-so, I don't know what he did, but whatever he did, I want.
Right.
And that's amazing. He says, I spoke to my neighbor. He said, just call Nachman or call Adam and do their workshop. And that's what I did. And that's such a great referral because this guy didn't do anything, but he's changing his neighbor's life.
Oh, okay. So you mean like that? But that's what I think in Pirkei Avos it has the argument over what's greater, like
Torah.
learning Torah or doing good deeds,
Right.
Torah mitzvahs.
Yeah.
And I think one was like Torah is greater because it leads to good deeds, but
Right.
that makes it sound like the deeds are greater.
Right.
So-
Right.
Right. You go in a little bit of a circle.
But yeah, you have to teach people. And I also think that I see with my clients when they look at me that if I'm breathing, they'll breathe. If I'm doing this work, they'll do the work.
So I did a podcast. I used to do ones where I like shared certain ideas myself, and I called it "I Am Patient Zero," right? Because the recognition that, like, really, I guess this idea can be expressed in different ways. But like, for example, there's many people that you've helped, right, in the world. But how many kids do you have?
11.
11. But there's 11. There's only 11 who, like, you're their father,
Right.
right? Meaning they can't get their father from anyone else.
Correct.
They'll try to replace you with another 1,000 people.
Right.
Right. if we screw that one up. But so obviously there's a level of responsibility on father, right, that you have for them more than the rest of the world. But then for yourself, like, you're the only one, meaning, or for myself, I'm the only one. Like, I have to make the choice. So on some sense, God has many messengers to help the average person, less messengers to help our kids, and like no messengers besides us to help ourselves.
Okay.
Like, he's kind of like,
Right.
either you help yourself or not. Otherwise, he just disrupts the whole game of free choice.
Mm-hmm.
If he comes in and
So you're talking
work for us.
about taking ownership of your life.
that really what this is all about. Like, the House of More is this wonderful thing, but and these retreats are this wonderful thing, and it's okay, I'm helping someone, but then I go into these retreats, or I see an event at the house, and because the house is right here and it's going on, so I end up in much more healing things than I would be otherwise. Or at the Adama retreat, if Mayor's doing a breath work, I'm sitting in the breath work.
Of course.
I'm doing it with everyone else. And then I have a breakthrough experience. I'm like, man, like, I needed this breath work. I didn't need the retreat. Like, I need a lot of this stuff. And with each one afterwards, I'm like, wow, who would I have been without that? Like,
Right.
without that journey right there,
Right.
who would
Right.
I have been? And just the recognition that it always comes back to me, like, on the primary thing. So I was operating from that for a while. And then I came across a sikha of the Rebbe where he spoke about Avram, which has kind of challenged my thought process a little bit. So Avram wasn't the first, like, this is the first Jew, but he wasn't the first person who recognized God. Sometimes we say that about him, but it's not true actually.
Right.
Because you have before him, you have, for example, Enoch or Noach, right? They were
Right.
both quite spectacular
Right.
people who reached very, very high levels. What was unique about Avram was, it says, for Avram Zaken Baba Yamim, right? Which is, Zaken is the idea of like he himself advanced, and Baba Yam is he used his days well, like physically in the world mattered to him, that he was helping like, meaning you or I may be able to work on ourselves, and you can do one journey that can be 40 years of therapy. Okay, great. So you've advanced to where you need to be in life for yourself.
Right.
But in those 40 years that you were effing around, or I was effing around, like there were a lot of other people who didn't get the benefit.
Right.
So you may be zaken, right? You may become an elder, but you're not Baba Yamim. Your days weren't very good. Right. So he was the first one who balanced both.
Wow.
Like, and that was his unique contribution, and why we've he's kind of the first Jew, right? He's our the first father. So that kind of challenged the thought and said, maybe it's both. Maybe it's actually both. Like the key is the balance.
Yeah, it is both, but it's really about you, because I could look at you, Eli Nash. You don't know how many people you've affected just by being Eli Nash, because there are things that you've done that people in Toronto, people in New York, people in New Jersey, people Muncie, you've affected them. You've affected more people that you don't know.
But then you're going back to the purpose being affecting people.
But
the way to do it, right? That's what I'm saying, right?
But your way of doing it wasn't. I'm not going to come out and tell people that I'm an addict because I want to help people. Meaning, you're working on yourself, and you eventually came out and says, "I'm an addict," and it did help people. But your work was for yourself,
right?
And then that,
yeah. So that's true.
Ripple
Like
effect on
the
others.
focus is inward, but in order to get the benefit outward, the focus is going to be inward.
Yeah.
I mean, as a retreat participant that we both know, you're not going to take anyone further than you've taken yourself.
There you go. You have to l'recha kamecha. Love your fellow like yourself. So what does that mean? It means you need to love yourself. You really need to love yourself. So how am I teaching love if I don't love myself?
Right.
Because then if I don't love myself, then when I say I love you, it's just a transactional thing. That means I want something from you. Maybe I want your attention. I'm a people pleaser, whatever it is.
Right. If I haven't gotten to that space internally, I'm not going to be able to offer it for you.
Yeah.
As a friend of mine says, if it's not in stock, how you can offer it? Like how you give an item that's not in stock?
Yeah.
Right. Good. So you were explaining how you got into it. I want to make sure I didn't lose the train. So so for the first 5 years in the retreat, you're just kind of sitting back.
Sitting back.
I'm focused on myself.
Really
I'll help bring the food. I'll help move the table.
Yeah. I was in the kitchen. I was doing whatever needed to be done for the retreat. And then I started coaching people. And then I started facilitating rooms by myself. And it's been a really beautiful journey doing that. Like when I'm facilitating people for 8 hours straight, I don't even know that 8 hours passed. I'm just I'm in a flow state.
Right.
Or when I'm coaching someone and it's a really good coaching session, I don't even know the time. Like time doesn't matter because we're doing a lot of breathing, a lot of getting into our bodies, and I'm going into their bodies with them. I'm literally holding their hand and saying, you could do this. You have everything in you. Like in AA, they say, you're in recovery. So Gabor Mate likes to say, what does it mean recovery? Why don't they just say the person's healed? Recovery means that they found something that was always there.
Right.
It was always there. You just didn't realize it. So I'm helping people find something that was already there.
Right. So what? In addition to the retreats, you mentioned coaching. So there are different ways you work with people. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. So
retreats, I imagine you can't do too often.
Right. So we've done in 2023. We've done eight workshops for Anoichi.
8 weekends.
8 weekends.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, especially getting away from my family.
Yeah.
It's not easy. My day-to-day work is working one-on-one with people. I'll only take 2 or 3 people a day because I'm going into the experience with them. I'm not just giving them advice. I'm actually very much not giving them advice. I'm trying to help them find their own advice. So it takes a lot of energy. So I'll give myself a good half hour, an hour to breathe between sessions sometimes.
Got it. And a session will be an hour longer?
And a session can be an hour to hour and a half. I don't like going past that. So I work with coaching people. And then a big thing that we want to do with Anochi is make more people like me. Get people up to speed where they have a passion for this work. They have a coaching pull. And so I started a training program in Anochi, and that's my baby. It's training other coaches to do what we do.
And for that, how is that done? Is that done through weekend retreats? Is that done through one-on-one coaching?
So we have, when someone comes on a weekend retreat, what happens is they get their mind and their body just blown open. Wow, I've never seen something like this before. I can't believe I have this emotion of sadness, anxiety. Oh my goodness, what do I do with this? And we try to do a good job of tying it up before they go home, but ultimately they've just started their work.
Right.
So I'm very, very, very much into integration. And I see a lot of people doing work, whether it's in psychedelics or other things, and they just become junkies for a workshop, for psychedelics, but they're not doing integration. And what we want to do with Anochi is you go on a workshop, sign up to a men's group. And we have men's group that are local, so you could have a live men's group. There's Zoom men groups. So these are run by our coaches. We have close to 15, 16 men's group.
Nice.
Each group could handle about 7, 8 men. And this is just about continuing to do the work. And then if someone has a real chush in doing this work and they want to take it to the next level, then we have a coaching program. Our beginner coaching program is called The Container. And that's where we start teaching you nuances, new ideas to help you in your coaching practice, or to run a breath work, or to run a weekly men's group. And most of that training is interactive.
So you guys have your own breathwork certification, right?
No.
Okay, someone reached out to me today, said, know anything about Anochi breathwork certification? I said, I know they're doing this thing with Dan Brule, but I gave them your email.
Yeah, I could help them out with that.
Yeah, I gave them whatever, info@anochiworkshops.com, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so on the container you're talking about, you do what?
So on the container is about taking a group of guys for 12 weeks. We're teaching them different ideas, feminine, masculine, how to hold space, different emotions, how to process different people. And then every week we meet as a group, and on that meeting group we do some work together. We start creating a tight container of coaches where they could start leaning on each other. And then what I think the best thing about the container program is that every week you get paired up with another coach, and you have to facilitate each other.
Kind of similar to what you do with your friend, where
Exactly, kind of similar to what I do with my partner, and I'm part of the rotation. So anybody that's part of the container, up till now, I've been part of the rotation. So I'm checking in with another coach. So he's facilitating me, even though he could be a beginner at this work, and they're facilitating, and I'm facilitating them. And what I found, and I think this is very important, and I think this is something I really want to push with the work that we do, is if you want to take ownership of your life, you could do it. Anybody could do it. And the proof is that there are times that I have a coach that is coaching me, and he's only been in the work for about a year, and he doesn't understand the many nuances, but my thought process is I am surrendering to this person. Whatever he wants to do, if he wants to give me advice, even though I'll coach him not to give advice, I'm surrendering to that experience. And when I do that, I get unbelievable facilitations done with me, meaning to myself.
right.
Just surrendering and giving and being vulnerable, even to someone that's only been in the work for a year.
And your proof for what are you trying to support with that?
So I'm supporting that if someone wants to take ownership of their life and they want to check in and they want to do some work, they could do it with almost anybody.
Oh,
It's that mindset that you're not here to save me, but you're just here to hold space for me. You're here to help coach or guide
Right.
me, but I'm the one that's making the real changes in my life.
Right. I've made the point. It has risks, but it's that, the main benefit of a therapist or a coach or anything else is that you're dedicating an hour or so a week towards thinking about whatever it is you decide to work on.
Yeah.
Work on your mental health, your physical
Yes.
health,
Yes.
something else. And then if the guy happens to have a good idea or two, even better. you
Right.
know?
Right.
But the real benefit is that space. But unfortunately, like the other side of that, that's why I said Dana said sometimes in that space, people become a little bit too dependent or open to the other person and take advice a little bit too freely, which is dangerous.
Yeah, I think every coach, every therapist has that issue. How close do you get to the client? And there's boundaries. I know in the psychiatric world, they say,
Yeah.
don't get too close, don't hug your clients,
Yeah,
So
but
that-
also, right, the idea is, like at the Adama, I'm not afraid to give advice if someone calls me for advice. I'm not shy.
I think
But-
that's needed also sometimes.
But at the Adama, we don't. We try
Yeah.
not to. It's not the goal.
Right,
The goal is jump in freezing cold water
right.
and learn the lesson you need to learn.
Yeah,
Right? And one guy may come out, and not may come out, like this actually, I jumped in, and with enough energy, enough people there, you're going to stay in freezing cold water for 3 minutes. And then the guy comes out, and he's like, after the pain comes the pleasure. And it's like, okay, what a beautiful lesson, right? Right? And another guy comes out and says, wow, I can do hard things. Wow, I didn't realize I
Right.
can do hard things. I do have some toughness that I didn't realize was there. My wife was wrong about me.
right. Right.
So all of a sudden, people start learning the same thing. Breathe for an hour, breathe for an hour and a half, breathe for 2 hours, and you tell me what you've concluded, what's come up, what's come out.
Yeah.
And that's a much more useful piece of information
100%.
than, what I'm thinking about now is psychedelics have been very, very special for me, but I know I don't quite use it the way other people do, but it's been transformative because it takes on a completely different view of healing. And oftentimes you can communicate in ways like you get very clear information. So I remember at one point it's like what does my wife need from me? What does each one of my children need from me? And what's interesting is that every single time I asked that question, let's say there were 4 times over the last 3 years, it's like, what does my wife need from me right now? There were different answers.
Yeah.
There were different answers. So
Yeah.
what it led me to believe is that from that space, I feel like I'm getting you're very open in that space. You got a thought or information. If it's a little egotistical or wonky or something else, you're gonna know.
Yeah.
If it's clean, it's like, okay, that feels right.
Right.
And I'm trying to think of different ones. The first time I asked the question, what does my wife need from me? It's like, she needs my presence, just absolute presence. The next, that sounds good. That's me to answer every time. No, the next time I went in, it's like, she needs to feel my range. She needs to feel my gentleness, and she needs to feel my strength.
Wow.
Right? She needs to,
Right.
right?
Wow.
Needs to feel both. And another time was she needs to feel safe from me. Right now, as much safety as possible to bring.
And that just came to you.
Very, very clear.
Wow.
Very clear. Very super, super clear.
Yeah.
And remember once I would ask about my kids, and one I got, it's like nothing. It's like nothing, just exactly what you're doing. Like nothing.
Right.
With one of my children. Or maybe there was nothing I can give. Maybe it wasn't I didn't need anything. There was nothing I can even do. Another way of looking at it. But either way, the answer was nothing. It felt very clear for whatever reason. And not only did it feel very clear, it's like I acted on it, and I
Right.
saw results in the process. But the reason I bring that up is because we can be so quick to assume what someone needs from us.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this person needs this piece of advice, but how do you know? How do you know? But in this moment, in this space, I feel like I'm getting information that's so crystal clear. It's like, okay, that's what they need. That's why giving advice is a little bit dangerous. When I say I'm quick to give advice, oftentimes people will call me, and I say, it's like, what are you looking for? What's your intention?
Right.
Right. It's like, I want to know what I should do in this case. You're watching too much porn? Okay, go to a meeting.
Right.
Give so in those cases, I'll give very clear advice. But at the Adama retreat, we try to stay away from it entirely.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think there is a time to give advice. There are people out there that could benefit from your expertise and my expertise in life. I'm older than them. I've gone through things. So why do they have to go through what I went through for 5 years if I could give them just a few pieces of advice? And what's also really cool is when you let people find themselves, not give them advice, they come up with these epiphanies that actually is helpful for you. Wow, I never thought about that.
So when you're thinking of now as you're saying this?
Not specifically. I've been part of a lot of people's rebirthing. So when you see someone just give birth to themselves in a certain sense, I think you could understand what that means. It's when someone breathes and they find their authentic self for the first time. It's this godly moment, and I'm just there sitting in awe, just watching the person express or say something, or just beautiful, beautiful words are coming out of the person's mouth.
Right. I'm thinking of talking of we did 2 Adam retreats so far, and on one of them, Mayor was facilitating I don't know what you'd call it, like drama therapy or psychodrama, whatever, making something up. And one guy is a lot of pain is coming up, but he's going in a circle a little bit. He's like looping on a thought. So I jumped in and asked, like, who hurt you? And I had a thought in my head, right? I'm like, who hurt you? And he brushed off the question once. No one hurt me. I'm like, so a minute later, he's still in the same loop. I'm like, who hurt you? No one. So I was literally about to jump in and talk about his father, like to start prompting, because usually you think a parent or something else. But for whatever reason, I didn't. I would just ask the question again, like, who hurt you? Tell us who hurt you. Like, you're in a safe place. Tell us who hurt you. And within like moments, he was just like lashing out at God in like the crazy, like a very, very intense way.
Yeah.
The reason I brought it up is because it wasn't what I expected in the moment. Like, meaning there was a thought that was coming to me, like, let me get him out of this loop. Let me ask a question that can, just get him to stop saying the same thing over and over, whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. But there was a part of me that wanted to prompt, but it was actually in the wrong direction. Like, who would have thought to go to God?
Yeah.
And I was incredibly inspired because the guy, I think he grew up but he's no longer, and he doesn't look that way at all, and it ended up like the part of his process went through like a period of time that we had scheduled for Kabbalah Shabbos, and it went, but who was going to stop it?
Right.
Who was going to stop
100%.
it? So it went from there, and then afterwards, some people davened, and we went and had dinner together. And I told him afterwards that it was one of those beautiful prayers I've been a part of, just to watch a guy who completely, like the belief that you feel from that person, in that moment, that when everything is going wrong, like, who is he blaming it on? He's right. Like, who should he lash out on? Like, he got the right target. Most people miss. We go after their father or mother or this. Like, go to God. He's the one responsible.
Right.
It's a good destination.
And I think God wants that.
I think so too.
I think that's what a relationship is. Like, if I'm angry, then express your anger to God.
100%. 1,000%.
I think that's so healthy.
Yeah. And
obviously you do it in a respectful
or not even, if that's what you're
fine.
To do.
You're right.
Yeah, better than not saying it.
I guess so, yeah.
Better than not saying it. I've seen way too many people. In addiction recovery, like, I learned about God. I went to yeshiva my whole life. I developed a personal relationship with God in 12 steps. I remember hearing a video with Shay's Taub, and it's like, if I hear of one more Jewish kid who went to yeshiva his whole life, who found God in a church basement at a 12-step meeting, I'm going to pull my hair out. So I was one of those kids, right? One of those guys. And they taught us a different way. And one of them was, talk to him like you talk to a close friend. Like, you can talk to him in the same language, in the same words. And it was afterwards, I remember coming across, I think it was a mimer of the Rashab or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, where he said, like, davening is not, like, we have not fulfilled the mitzvah of davening if we have not davened, if we not prayed to God in our own words. Absolutely. There's like 2 parts. There's the davening there's a prayer in the book, read these words specifically, right, that have been developed over time. But, I don't know that Avram had these, going back to him, that he had this prayer book. Right. Some of these were developed by the Arizal or others, right?
Right.
And what did they pray? They prayed in their own words, right? And that, like, to fulfill the obligation of prayer, one also needs to do it in our own words. And that, I learned it in the Sikha, right? Or Maimer, I think it was, or Rashab, I think it was. But it wasn't said I'm sure it was said. It didn't land for me.
Right.
And, when we did davening every morning in school, we did prayer every morning in school, they didn't say, okay, now it's 5 minutes.
Right.
right, for you to do it in your own words. And I learned that in a 12-step meeting.
Yeah, wow.
And my own words at the time were, they were angry. This guy was lit up. He was lit up when he had a lot of pain. He suffered a lot of pain in his life, and he had to get it out. But the reason I brought that up, I thought of that is because you were saying that, sometimes when you're talking to someone, they're going to give you something that you're not, like, idea you're not going to give yourself. And sometimes, like, a prompt is much better than advice.
Yeah. So of course there's going to be prompts, but you just want them to figure it out on their own.
Right.
It's almost like you could start seeing things. You could see the trajectory of someone's life, but you can't do anything about it. They have to figure it out themselves sometimes.
Say more.
You know, in this work, you just notice patterns, the way people breathe. You already know it's almost like they're giving you their life story. And I can't read everybody to 100%, but if I start speaking to somebody, I could start getting awarenesses of where they're insecure or what a limiting belief is that they have. And for me to just come out to them and say, hey, you have this limiting belief that you're not good enough, and this is how your life is going to work out for the next 20 years, that's probably not a good thing to say to somebody.
Right.
But my hope is that they work on themselves and they change that trajectory and they find it themselves. And I see it sometimes with friends. I have a friend he has a very rocky relationship with his wife, and he knows what I do. He's come on my workshop, one of my best friends, and I'm just watching him, and there's nothing I could do.
Right.
And he knows I'm there. Like, I keep saying, hey, I'm here for you. But
it is humbling to be so helpless sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah. I felt that because it's like people reach out to me and I feel like I can help them. And then there's someone close to me who I feel like I want to help them.
You can't.
You can't do a damn thing.
Yeah.
You can't do a damn thing.
Because it just turns, it backfires.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't work.
Who do you think you are? You think you're better than me?
No, but also you're mixing into
And you're
their...
mixing in, yeah.
Yeah, you're mixing into their life. It's not...
There's something
It's not the
a
way it's meant to
modality
be.
that I'm doing right now called family constellations. So I've been doing it already for a couple of years, learning it. The idea is that every family wants to come back into alignment. So not just your own immediate family, but even the whole world as a family wants to come back into alignment together. So part of coming into alignment is someone needs to come into their own alignment. And you could see a son, you could see a father, you could see a brother, a friend going through something, and they have to go through something in order to come back into alignment. And you just have to trust the process and say, okay, that's what they're going through right now. And wherever they come out, that's what they're going to find. And they know where to find me. They know where to find people these days.
Right.
So if they need my help, I'm there for them.
Yeah. This is an area I've struggled with a lot, seeing a lot of pain around people close to me and
That's hard.
Wanting to jump in and not being able to do much about it. And it's not even worse than not being able to do anything about it, is that when I've tried, I've done the opposite of my intention. Like I've actually,
Yes.
you screw things up more.
Yes. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you feel like it's something you can do. Like
just
if
do
only
a
given the
breath work.
chance.
Just come on one of my retreats.
Right, if only given the chance.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but it doesn't, Tony Robbins, I remember I was at a workshop with him a bunch of years ago, and he said that, like the front area of his workshops are reserved for the people who are
The VIPs.
like the VIPs who are, I don't know, paying like $100,000 a year to be part of his special group.
Yeah,
and they can come to any seminars. They come to some private seminars with him, his shtick. And he said that he had given, I forgot who, I think even may have mentioned the name, but some famous guy, a free ticket to one of his workshops, right? So next to him, like on all sides of this guy, are people who paid six figures for the opportunity to...
And this guy...
And this guy left a day in,
Yeah.
And he said, he's like, those who pay attention. But I think it's not just pay financially. It's those who pay, those who've paid something to be here, those who've paid a price to make this decision to do whatever it is they want to do. They pay attention. They're going to get something from it.
Yeah.
And those who don't they're not ready. If you're not ready,
So
you're not ready.
it's a very good point, because I've seen kids come to our workshop, 21-year-olds, and I think the age that I like that zone is like the 32 to 38-year-old, because most people as they grow up, they have this certain sense of arrogance when they're single, they're a teenager, they're 21 years old. I'm going to be different than my father or whatever, and then they get married. And then they start getting hit a little bit. Even the most popular guy in school now starts having a wife that's complaining or nagging him, and they get humbled. And that it's that 32 years old, that 35-year-old that has gotten hit enough, but not too much, that he wants to work on himself, and he's this driving force that he's just going to change his life. Those are the best people to have on a workshop.
Really interesting. Really interesting. I'll let you know over time if I find the same. And above that, then what happens past that?
You know what? There's a guy in our coaching program. He's in his 60s. I am so inspired by him. I think he's close to 70. And he wants this work, and he does the breath work, and he comes back to workshops, and he wants the staff. And I'm just blown away by him. Like which 60-year-old wants to start making big changes in their life?
Right. You're saying that's an anomaly.
That's an anomaly.
Right.
But again, it's you know what? Everybody is coming to the table. The question is, are you coming voluntarily, or you're coming because you're being dragged and kicked, and and you're in such a bad space in your life that you have no choice but to do work.
Right. Well, there's a beautiful gift in desperation. So.
Right. I came because every area of my life was suffering. I was in such a constricted place in my life where I needed a workshop. I wanted it so badly. So,
Right. That's not a bad. That's what is it? The my sponsor called it something like the beautiful gift of desperation,
right? That makes sense.
the sweet willingness of the desperate, maybe something like that. Right. It's like you get someone from that perspective. When someone's still fighting, you're not sure if it's a problem. Like step 1 of the 12 steps, people sometimes misunderstand it. It says we admitted we're alcoholics, right? Our lives had become unmanageable. We admitted we're powerless over alcohol. Our lives had become unmanageable. It's like, we're powerless. I'm an alcoholic. Every meeting you're saying, hi, I'm Larry, I'm an alcoholic. Like, why are you putting yourself down in that way? Because if you're not there, if you're not at that space of humility, it's not about beating yourself down forever. But if you're not at the space of humility that you think there's a problem in your life,
right? It's recognizing where you're at.
Don't jump on board. I was speaking to someone this week who asked me about doing a psychedelic journey, and they thought I'd be encouraging of them to it. And I said, why do you want to do it? And they said, well, I have a couple friends doing it, and I thought that it would be nice. I said, do you have any problems in your life that you want to work on? I was like, no, not really. So I said, that's the last place you want to go. Like, don't go. I said, at some point in time, like whether it's this work or other work, you're going to ask the question, why the hell did I come here? Because you're going to face something that's uncomfortable. And that doesn't have to be a psychedelic journey. That can be anything. It could be a workshop, a retreat, a breath work. Like, why did I subject myself to this pain? Like, why am I going here? Why am I opening this door? Why am I feeling this again? And if the reason is because my friend convinced me, you're going to want to kill the person.
Yeah.
But if the reason is because I want to be a better father, if the reason is because I'm sick and tired of, showing up to the office every day and being miserable, and I want to change it, and I think this can help, and I have reason to believe it could, then when that happens, you'll remember your intention and you'll push through it. You're not going to want to clock your friend in the back of the head.
And that brings us to a point where, do you market these workshops? Because in a certain sense, you don't want to glitz and glamour people. Oh, come to this Anoichi workshop, come to a Dhamma workshop, and you're going to change your life. You want them to come on their initiative. So there's a balance. Like, it definitely needs to be marketed so people know what it is, but not sales. Like, I don't want to sell someone to come to a workshop.
Right.
Or if someone comes to me, and this has happened, Nachman, I'm about to get divorced. I need to come to a workshop. I said, I guarantee you will get divorced because the workshop is not saving your marriage. And sure enough, they come to the workshop and they get divorced. And when you're thinking that the workshop is the magic pill, you've already lost the essence of the workshop. The workshop is, all we are is teaching you tools. The magic pill is already inside you. We're just activating it. We're helping you activate it.
And so you think someone is going too far when they're coming to a workshop in the hope of...
It's that their friend convinced them to go, or they're coming to the workshop because they're desperate and they want someone to save them. I don't mind desperate. I was desperate in my life. But come because you want to learn the tools. It's almost... The analogy that I like giving is I'll go to someone and say, you could build the most beautiful house of your dreams, but you have to build it. I'm going to give you all the tools, all the drawings, everything that you need, all the financing, whatever you need. It's all yours, but you have to build the house. And it's the same thing with the work. Here's the tools. You want to build yourself up, and you want to be a more total human being. You want to be more an authentic person, and you want to connect more with your deeper self. I'm going to give you the tools to get there, but you have to do it. And yes, there's coaches, we could help you. But just like in sports, a coach doesn't go on the field.
Right. No one can do your push-ups for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And not only that, but you see in some sports, the coaches, he's not even fit to go on the field. He's out of shape. But he has he's faced these experiences before, and he's able to point out little nuances that these players need that will change the course of the game.
Yeah.
But they're doing the game. They're playing the game.
Right. And one of those who are coming, my wife and I went to a relationship therapist. It was before we got married. And she said, who's a schlepper and who's a schleppy? Like, who? Right? She's like, there's always one. Like, you guys didn't come, like,
right.
Both make this decision. Right? Someone slept. So you're saying having one of those schleppies in a workshop.
Listen, sometimes it works.
Right.
The ideal candidate that I want is someone that's successful to some degree, or even if he's not successful, but he has the drive inside of him. I want to change my life. I want to step more into my manhood. I want to be a better husband. I want to not be afraid to make that phone call. Like I keep sabotaging my business.
Right.
I'm unhappy where I'm at. I want the tools to change. And someone that has that drive, I mean, he's already successful. And it's just all we do in a workshop is just teach him a few tools, a few nuances, and
a lot of your focus is really on breath work. That's kind of what you build the workshop around. It's
mindfulness, it's breath work. A big part of it is breathing. It's because again, the breathing is bringing you into yourself.
A huge fan.
So yeah, a big focus is breath work.
You have thoughts on? I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people who've worked with psychedelics and then come to breathworks, or before or after. You have thoughts on this whole movement that's been exploding?
I wouldn't say I'm a psychedelic expert, but at the same time, I don't think it should be shunned. I think there is a place for it. I've seen people who've done some psychedelics that have done absolute amazing work on themselves, and those people have had some really good integration afterwards. So I coach someone who's done psychedelics, and he's not allowed to do any psychedelics without asking me first. He's done it 6 months apart, and during those 6 months, he's meeting me every single week, and we're grinding through whatever we need to grind through from whatever he's learned in the psychedelic experience. And then at the flip side, I've seen people just throw themselves into psychedelics, and I don't recognize them anymore.
In what way?
They've lost a certain sense of humanity. And I have a friend that had a nervous breakdown doing psychedelics in a not professional,
like a recreational way.
Well, I think he was doing ayahuasca, and he took some mushrooms, and he had a nervous breakdown. And I guess the leader of that session allowed him to do it.
What, to mix?
To mix the medicines. And I've had
interesting.
another friend who's done a bunch of ayahuascas, not a lot, and I don't recognize him anymore. He's just in this blissful state. Everything is good, but not everything is good, man. Like, of course, we know Hashem, everything is good, but there's no fire under him. Go out and get a job. You're a young guy.
Right.
Go no, everything's good, everything's cool, and Hashem's going to provide. Yeah.
Right.
Make
spiritual, right. Kind of like spiritual bypassing, as they call it.
And I see it as a direct result from how many ayahuasca sessions or mushroom ceremonies that they've done. And again, not to say I think I have friends that do mushroom ceremonies and ayahuasca, and I think they've done some great work. I just spoke to someone that did an ayahuasca ceremony in May with a friend of mine, and changed his life. Absolutely changed his life. So there is good to it.
Yeah, no one's the biggest fans of psychedelics are also the ones who believe that it should be done in the most sacred and intentional way.
Yes.
Meaning, I didn't used to be offended by drug use, for example. I didn't like it. Let's say honestly, all drugs. Let's say like mushrooms, right? So it wasn't offensive to me if someone used mushrooms to, I don't know, to party or to have great sex or something else. Like, it wasn't offensive. Today it is.
You get offended if someone does it like that.
It's like you feel like you're desecrating something so sacred, something
Right.
with such huge potential, right? And it's certainly more offensive to me than it was, like, post it than it was afterwards,
Right.
Like, understanding what the potential is. And I wasn't sure at first, when I had experience, I'm like, okay, maybe the mushrooms did it. But then, I saw a number of people who were struggling, and talking to them, and I said, have you tried psychedelics? And like, well, I've done mushrooms, 30, 40 times at festivals and
Right.
everything else. I'm like, okay, maybe they have nothing to learn. But then watching some of those people go on and do guided mushroom experiences with a trained facilitator, and,
Right. Whole different ballgame.
and then something shifts.
Yeah.
And like, okay, that's a different experience. Yeah. So, I mean, for myself, I'll never, like, they're never scheduled in, like, spur of the moment.
Right.
Right. There's always
A build up.
what?
It's a preparation.
Okay. How far out are they? What are we doing? When are we doing it? Where are we doing it? Like,
Yeah.
plan it out for some period of time. And what's the intention? Why are you going in? What's the process? And I don't think it would have been the same for me if I didn't have the 8 years of experience in 12 steps under my belt, which that's a grind. That's the daily work, the daily check-ins, the regular meetings, the 12 steps is not we did the 12 steps. The 12 steps is a way of life.
It's a constant.
Yeah, I mean, you have the first 3 steps are considered kind of like the foundational, like, how do you view the world? How do you view yourself, right? 1 being like the humility of it, the possibility of healing, right? Like, I could heal, God could heal me, something like that. And 3 is I'm letting go of control, right? And those are daily
Mantras.
daily decisions. If you let go of one of those things, if someone loses humility, then their whole program can fall apart. It doesn't matter if they're 20 years sober or 10. If someone loses hope, same thing. Doesn't matter how long you're sober, you can fall apart. If someone starts trying to control their life again, then what's the difference whether you do it with alcohol or something else? Only a matter of time
Right.
before that goes off the rails. And then you have the deep work of steps 4 through 9, right, which are sitting with the sponsor and working through your character defects and talking it out with them and making amends and sitting down with those people. Like, that's the very intentional deep work. But then step 10, 11, and 12, they call the maintenance work. It's like, okay, once you've cleaned up the house, and it needed some deep cleaning, okay, don't stop, right? At the end of every day, make sure you walk through the bedrooms, walk through the main room, sweep it. If you see anything that's got a little dirty, bring out the power tool for that. You're not going to need it. You won't necessarily need to go through it with the same intensity, and then make sure that you're helping someone else, because that work, when you're sitting across from someone else and you're seeing their challenges, what are you seeing? You're seeing your own also, right? Like, it's amazing mirrors. So as part of it is the service, and then daily prayer, daily meditation, right? So those check-ins, that's very much on planet Earth. Step 10 says, continue to take personal inventory, which is referring to things that happen. It says 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So it's like every day you're checking in and saying, okay, did I screw up? So, okay, so now I got to make that right. So those, that balance with psychedelics allows for something special to happen, where I don't know if I would have gotten the same benefits from it were it not for...
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because I think a lot of people are looking for that easy fix, like I said before. But if you go through the grind, and you don't go into the grind because you want to grind, you're just working on yourself, you don't even feel that it's a grind. You're just working on something. It could take 3 months, it could take 6 months, it could take a year, but you don't feel it. But then you have people that they don't like something about their life and they want to get fixed right away. And then they run to a psychedelic. It's not a good reason to go to a psychedelic. Prepare yourself first. Go to a workshop. Do therapy for a year, something, and then go to a psychedelic. It's a whole different experience.
Right. There's another thing also for me at this point is the last space you want to find something out about yourself is in a psychedelic journey.
Wow. Yes.
Meaning, like, it's much easier if I can do it at my pace. It's like, oh, that's an issue. Okay, let me work on it. Let me talk to someone.
Right.
To be confronted by a completely new reality inside a psychedelic journey. Sometimes it's necessary, meaning if we've tried everything and we've beaten our head against the wall, and like in my case, like most recent psychedelic journey, is I've had a relationship with anger. I was not willing to let go of anger, right? So it didn't necessarily, I've learned over the years how to mask it, how to not lash out at people. When I was a teenager, it looked like, a lot of fights and temper tantrums. When I got a little bit older, it looked like lashing out in the form of strip clubs and in the form of porn and stuff like that. But that was rage,
Right. Right.
That was coming out a different way. But then there was a part of me that didn't want to let it go. When I saw it on my character defect list and I said, we're entirely ready to let it go, it's like, I'm not going to let go of anger, because if I let go of anger, I'm going to get taken advantage of by people. And my biggest fear in the world is getting taken advantage of by people. So I held on to anger. This is my last form of protection, and sorry, not ready. And it wasn't until a recent psychedelic journey that all that unraveled, and that confrontation is not an easy one. But the way I look at the self-work today is that there's kind of stages of liberation, right? When someone's in addiction, the problem is they're in a prison. Right, that's like Mitzrayim, right? Like Egypt, that's what it is. It's a prison. It's a prison of, I went in here seeking pleasure, and now I'm just avoiding pain. I mean, at some point in time in every person's journey with addiction, they're gonna say, I didn't drink because I wanted the benefits of drinking, is I wanted to stop the obsessive thoughts of thinking about drinking, right? So it's not even like benefit. It's like, here, I'm gonna get high. No, there's no high. I just need to stop the thought. It's like this banging in my brain. Right. Take a drink, take a drink, take a drink. It's like, okay, I'll take the drink. Not for the benefit of the drink, to stop the incessant noise in the head. That's where it got to me. I said, okay, I want to be free from this prison. And then you work through that, and then eventually it's like, wow, I'm not thinking about porn. I'm not thinking about watching porn. I'm not thinking about not watching porn. It's not a thing anymore. I'm free. Yeah. And then these become kind of levels of liberation. Like Absolutely. The liberation I feel today, and I said it's only recent, around anger. It's a level of liberation I didn't know was possible. It's like, this is amazing. And each successive one, that's, I think, when it becomes fun, is when you realize, oh, wow, here's like another level of prison that I'm in. Like, I can get liberation here. I can get liberation there. It's like, right.
I think in the work, we see that, where it's almost like you conquer, or maybe conquer is the wrong word, but you've really worked on a certain area of your life, and you're somewhat satisfied, and then there's more levels and layers to keep on working on it, on different areas of your life. So you're sort of conquering one space of your life, and then you're moving on to another space in your life, and then you work on that for a little bit, and you move on to something else, and just recognize that you're always in the work.
Yeah, and when I think of that, I think of like choice. Meaning you'd mentioned examples of someone, let's say, who's self-sabotaging themselves in work. Yeah. Right? They can't make that phone call that they need. It's almost like they don't have a choice to. They know they need to, but the choice is not available to them. Right. They come to a workshop, and whatever limiting belief or anxiety or blockage was there all of a sudden gets removed, and now they sit there, and they could make the phone call or they can't make the phone call. They're a free person with choice. Right. And that's that's kind of endless, meaning because in many ways we don't have free choice. Like on a lot of areas of life, we don't fully have free choice. Right. And I feel like that's the journey of healing. The journey of healing is like, oh, I don't really have free choice when my wife talks to me in that way. Like I'm completely hijacked. Now I'm done for. Right. Okay, so can I get freedom there? Right. I don't really have free choice to feel good about myself if there's not millions of dollars in my account. Okay, but could I work through that? Could I get through that identification with wealth? Okay, now I have freedom there. Right. 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 And so. I think a lot of the work is being okay with where you're at. Is holding space for you where you're at, whether it's I'm in a bad space in my life, okay. Even though I think I'm in a bad space, or even people could prove to me I'm in a bad space, I could still be okay where I'm at, because then I'm moving from somewhere. Right. If I don't recognize where I'm at, and a lot of times even making that phone call or wanting that drink, and I have just this like impulse, I need a drink, I want to watch porn, and what if you didn't? What if you just sat there and did nothing? What if you tried it out for 30 seconds? Just give yourself an extra 30. Or what if you tried it for one breath before you have that impulse to, and maybe that breath stops you, or maybe it doesn't, but maybe the second time it stops you. And I think a tool. And for that breath, it stopped you. Right. Right. And that's that choice. That's that spaciousness. Yeah.
And if I continue having that breath, if I continue giving myself that pause, holding space for myself, it's a very compassionate space to be in. I want the drink. I want to go online. I want to eat more food. What if I didn't? What if I just held space? And it's hard. But if I practice that and I just held space for my thoughts and my feelings and didn't do anything about it, it's almost as if I'm talking to this little boy inside me saying,
You're
I'm
okay.
holding space for you.
Right.
You're okay.
Right.
You matter.
Right. You're reminding of a technique that I used in addiction, because you realize you can't wrestle with this, right? It's just too powerful.
Yeah.
So you have to find almost like tricks to,
Embrace it.
Yeah, the kind of. So one of the tricks I found was, okay, so like this powerful urge comes. I say, no problem. I got you. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm first going to journal
Right.
for a few minutes.
Right.
Then I'm going to call 3 people, right? I'm going to call 3 people. Either if one of them pick up, I'm done, right? And I'll talk to them for a little bit. And then if I still feel like I want to do this, I'll go and do this. Like, no problem. I'm not fighting you. I'm just
Right,
saying after I
right,
journal,
right.
after I call 3 people, then, and if they don't answer, I would leave a message with each one. Today, that may look like a WhatsApp. Back then, it looked like
Right.
a voicemail. But they're all, that's happening. And then just see how I feel. And when I use this technique, there was one time in years that after I did this, I still felt the need
Wow.
to, and I did.
I think it's an underused, absolutely amazing technique. It's embracing what is. People think in life that I don't want to be like my father, or I don't want to do this. I'm just going to run away. And running away is just perpetuating the same thing that you're going to do anyways.
Right.
But if you embrace it, you embrace your father, you embrace your parents. I see kids that are still upset at their parents forever. You're 40 years old and you're still upset at your father? Like, at a certain point, you need to get over it. You need to embrace it. You need to understand that, he's your father. And there are some really bad fathers out there. I get it. And maybe there's some fathers that should never be forgiven for certain things that they've done, but they're still your father. And there's certain embrace that's very freeing when you could go into that space and embrace your father or embrace the addiction. There's something, that's what it feels like you're describing. It's like it's a very freeing feeling. Like,
yeah.
I'm in control a little bit more. I'm not totally out of control.
Well, once we resist it, we're screwed.
Right.
My addiction became much easier to handle when I was comfortable talking about it, as an example.
Right.
But I didn't speak about it from a space of, and I don't necessarily recommend that unless it's like for the people close in our lives who are supporting us. Yes, speak about it from a space of I need help, right? That's appropriate, but that's not appropriate to throw on the whole world. I'm not going to vomit on audiences. There are a few people who are willing to hold space for that. So when it was really tough, then I spoke to a few people. As it got easier, and as I started, like, okay, like I'm riding these waves better, I'm managing this, then I began to speak about it. And the more I spoke about it, like, just, okay, this is who I am, I'm not hiding it. I went to a meeting. What kind of meeting? I went to a meeting to help me with porn. I mean, for so many years, I'm dodging what kind of meeting I'm going to.
Right. It's interesting you say that. A friend of mine, he was cheating on his wife, and it would just eat him up. He couldn't live. And at a certain point, he just, in front of the psychiatrist, just laid it all out. And he said it felt like a weight was lifted off his shoulders. And again, he has to make amends. Like,
Yes.
he's, but his wife took his hand and held it and said, I'm with you. And he says that moment was the most loving moment he's ever felt in his whole
He
life.
did that in front of a psychiatrist and his wife?
And his wife, yeah.
Okay, he's lucky it went well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right. No, I'm saying I don't necessarily recommend that.
Correct.
Like in front of the wife, but
Right.
in front of the psychiatrist for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. In front of the wife. Like in my case, I vomited a little bit too much. Like there was a certain part of it that was necessary for me. Like I was my wife at the time, I was dating her and got into recovery. But going back, I wish I left out a few unnecessary details. Like the fact that I was struggling is one thing. Some of the way I tell people today is, if you have to come clean to your wife, which to be in an honest relationship, most likely one has to at some point. I'm not giving a blanket recommendation. There are exceptions. There's some people who can handle it, whatever. But for many relationships, that has to happen at some point, coming clean. So I'll tell people, speak in a way that doesn't conjure up images in people's minds. Just speak with facts. Speak with facts, I struggle with porn. Don't say when, don't say where, don't say what kind.
Right.
Like you don't need
100%.
Yeah. I had someone who was here last week on podcast and he said a terror of Rav Nachman, which was very interesting. I asked him to share it with me because I've shared this topic, this idea before, but I didn't know Nachman. He said, Nachman would say that like sexual energy, like when people can't contain it, it's energy that's meant to come out of our mouth. Like we're meant to express it. And when it doesn't, it builds up inside us and it wants to leave through there, right? So this concept sometimes, like we're sitting there, we're building up, we have a secret. We can't tell, we feel a burden. We can't tell anyone. So it's like start expressing it and all of a sudden we won't feel the intensity.
Right.
Like I had said that always in a personal way. I didn't realize like a global observation like Nachman made. But Nachman.
Right. I'm Nachman. But I think that's a good point in general with emotions. You know, I tell people, you have anger. Now, either you're going to dump it on your wife and kids, or you're going to dump it when we're in session or in a workshop. Dump it on me. Put it on the workshop in a healthy, therapeutic way, as opposed to you go home, your kid spills milk, which is totally thing that a kid does, and you lose yourself. And why are you losing it at your kid? Because you have anger that you haven't processed.
Right.
So it's so important to express, to get those feelings out of you and to not hold on to them for too long.
Right. This goes back to what you're saying earlier, just about like admitting that it's there, right?
Yeah.
The freedom to admit, like, hey, it's there. This is my challenge.
If there's one thing that I could tell people about this work is recognizing where you're at. So many people are almost, they want to recognize that they're further than they're at. Maybe their ego's telling them, "Oh no, I've been doing this work for 2 years. I'm so big." In reality, they still haven't met themselves where they're really at, where they're holding in life today, where their insecurities are. And if you could recognize your insecurities, and if you could recognize, this is where I'm at. Yeah, I have these thoughts that I'm not good enough. I have these urges. I have these impulses. And this is where I'm at. Okay, that's step number one, that awareness. And then we could work up. As opposed to people recognizing they're here, but really they have this much, they're really down there, but they think they're here, or they tell people they're there. And it's hard to work with those people because you're working with a false pretense.
Right. I think there's a place at which it's recognized, like the depth of the game, and there's never a sense, I think, after that of where one is at.
Yeah, I think
because when you talk about infinity, like what's the difference if you've
correct
100 steps towards infinity, or 6 steps towards infinity, or 600 steps towards infinity?
Right.
We're still.
But I think if there's vulnerability, if there's humility, I think those are absolute keys for this work.
Yeah, that's what.
If you don't have that, and if there's ego, it's hard.
Yes, that's what I saw was very powerful from these, more powerful than, like from the retreats, from what any of the facilitators are doing. Just a room full of people that have permission to be honest with each other.
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
The way people can breathe into that space.
Yeah,
is.
But that's what men should be like. We could sit around the fire, and I think this is what the Alter Rebbe wanted when he created Chabad Hasidus, was let's be real. Let's be brutally honest with each other. It doesn't mean you have to, like you said, give too many details, but that's what a Farbrengen was supposed to be.
Right.
Where we could be absolutely real with each other and then work on ourselves. This is where I'm holding in life. Okay.
So let's end with this, because you're obviously from, a religious Jew. How has this work changed your relationship with your frumkeit, your observance?
I went to yeshiva. I grew up from birth. I went to elementary school. I learned Chumash. I learned Gemara. I learned Mishnayos. I learned Chassidus. And I remember even thinking when I was a teenager learning Chassidus, something doesn't make sense. Like I could understand intellectually the concepts, but it still didn't make sense to me. And when I started doing this work, which is getting really vulnerable and opening up to myself and being humbled over and over again, it gave me a whole new appreciation towards Chassidus, a whole new appreciation towards God. I developed a new relationship with God, where in the past I felt there wasn't even a relationship. I was just doing things because that's the way I was taught to do. I was, if you don't do this, then you're going to get slapped. So I feel it's a much more authentic relationship.
It's deepened it in a lot of ways.
Deepened it, absolutely.
So, and what do you make of the fact that we're reaching for modalities, right, that are certainly not Jewish modalities, and in many cases they're not only not Jewish, they're, like breath work, for example, is very, I don't know who's exactly where they're pulled from, but I know that Dan has been into some, he's gone to
India,
Eastern,
yes.
He's gone to China, he's gone to India, worked with Buddhists and, many others in order to gain this knowledge, right? So a lot of this knowledge was retained, a lot of this wisdom was retained by groups which are on its surface, very, very different than Judaism. What do you make of that?
So I think people are searching. They're not getting answers from within their community, so they're searching elsewhere. I think we have to give them a platform where they could stay within the Jewish culture so that that's their culture. Why go elsewhere? And on that note, a lot of times I'll be learning Chassidus and I'll be reading the words and it's describing my workshop to a T. And it's all there. We just haven't figured out how to extract it. And at least the teachers that I've had, and I'm learning how to extract it. I remember when I first started our workshops for 2 years, once a week I would go to my Rav's house, and we went over the workshop, every single detail, and we'd go over other things about the work, and he would, from a Torah perspective, like see it and give me his blessing for everything that we're doing.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So you see that as part of your mission is to bring some of this wisdom and information back in a way that's very palatable for those within the community.
Yes, yes.
Right. Right. It's definitely the only way it's going to get there in any meaningful way, meaning to have that, the impact that it can really change a community, that it can change a group of people.
Yeah.
It's going to need to be.
In today's day and age,
Right.
there's a lot of Jewish workshops out there. Like right off the top of my head, I can name you 6 to 10 Jewish workshops that you could go to. And they're all offering something different. They're the same, but they're different. They have different flavors. And there are people that are going to be attracted to mine, and some people are going to be attracted to somebody else's, and some people are going to go to both workshops. There's enough out there that if someone wants to work on themselves, I think we are at the cutting edge. Like, you're not doing yourself a disservice if you went to a Jewish workshop as opposed to a non-Jewish workshop. I think what we have is something very unique and special, and that someone could get everything they need from us. And not only that, but I think the Jewish workshops are really right up there with the non-Jewish workshops.
Right, in terms of what they offer and everything else. I think ultimately a lot is, a lot of these workshops, there's overlapping tools and overlapping ideas, but it's the facility, like that person, when you're seeing them, are you resonating and connecting with them? Because a person is going to take you to, with working through them, God willing, as far as they've gone, right? So if someone says, hey, that's something that speaks to me.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, in my case, there's a lot of somehow combining business with the purpose, which a lot of people haven't quite figured out, how to stay in the business world and not make it all about money and purpose. And that may speak to someone else. But on the other hand, haven't completely stayed within the Orthodox fold, right? And for some, it, there's one person asked us, said, how's Meir doing a workshop on men if he's not even married? What does he understand about being a man if he's not married?
Right.
I said, fair question.
That is a fair question. Yeah.
It's a fair question, right? Hopefully by the time the workshop comes around, I'll still be married. At least one of us will be, but it's a fair question.
Absolutely.
Meaning, right, there's, I was speaking to Adam at some point, and he said, I hope you're okay interviewing, and I talk about my workshop and things like that. I said, we're not competing. First of all, I don't make money on it. Number one, it's not my business.
Right.
All these efforts costing money. That's first of all. But I said, second of all, I'm not competing with workshops. I'm competing with casinos. I'm competing with strip clubs.
Right.
I'm not competing with another workshop. I mean, how many people come? How many people come to a weekend for you?
Max we've had was 27 new participants.
What's 27?
It's nothing.
Yeah, what's 27?
Yeah.
So, the amount that's needed. And then, like you said, how many workshops have you been to? Right? How many workshops have I been to?
Right.
It's not like 27 and all these people are good.
Right.
They're done.
Right.
Everything's over.
Right. Right.
No, go again and again. And how
Right.
many can you do 8 in a year? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a ton. It's
Yeah.
8.
It's only 8.
It's only 8.
It's only 125 people. That's it.
Right. That's it.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's like we haven't touched anything.
But what I do see is being in this work for 10 years, I see the ripple effects. Communities are changing. Schools are changing because of the workshops.
Yes, there's been a massive, especially like in the last few years, like what's happened is unbelievable. The way, what I'm seeing is, I always think about like raising the bottom. Like, could we, you see someone's life like kind of falling apart. But like, can you catch it before you're in the hospital? Can you catch it before you're in prison? You know, can you catch it early? And I think that for a long time, this work was viewed as for the fringe, you know, on the fringe, like, oh, you're so screwed up, you can't even last a day not sober. Fine, so you'll you'll get a little help. But then suddenly people are realizing it's like, no, it's like, yeah, maybe I don't drink that often, but I can't be present with my kids. I'm not the husband I want to be. I'm not the businessman I want to be. I don't have the happiness or the joy I want to have, and this can help me there. So that to me is the most heartening part of it, is that you're seeing people coming in to it who on the outside aren't completely struggling.
Right.
Which is nice, which is really,
It
really
is,
nice.
yeah.
'Cause that's where it really should be. It should be it should be for everyone.
Yeah.
You don't teach meditation to the people who can't drink. Teach meditation to 100% of people.
Right.
Right. The essential skills. But okay, good. I'm glad we spoke. I'm impressed by the work you're doing, and bringing Dan here, and bringing this message out. It seems your audience seems to be very, very frum. Like you've penetrated a very, very, from what I've seen, like a very
over the last few years, it's
like deep
really,
into the community, which is beautiful.
Very deep into these insular communities. Yes.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very impressive.
Yeah.
To be able to do that and bring these messages out there. And what are you teaching? To breathe.
Right.
You know.
Right.
To breathe. It's a beautiful thing. So I wish you success with your.
Thank you.
With your work, with your message. It's great to meet you.
You too.
Say hello to Benny. We didn't talk about Benny, but
we're giving a shout out right here.
Shout out Benny, your brother Benny Forer. He and I did some work together in God's customer service department. You know, we fielded the complaints from the lost souls who were sexually abused, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And those in the community who thought we shouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And Benny took a few punches. I took a few punches for that.
Yeah.
But hopefully the world is a better place.
I think it is.
Result.
Yeah.
So thank you, Nachman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.